This video will talk about ogive plots. Ogive plots are also known as percentile plots. Percentile plots are nice to give you a relative standing. In other words, where do observations fall relative to the rest of the observations? So an ogive plot's relative cumulative frequency, or cumulative relative frequency. If you recall, frequency is the number of times data occurs in a bin or in a class. Relative frequency measures the proportion of times that the data occurs in a bin, so relative cumulative frequency is the proportion of frequencies at or below a given value. Right? In other words, percentile. So percentile is a measure that indicates the value at or below which a given percentage of observations will fall. A common example is, let's say an ACT score of 26 means that you're in the 83rd percentile. That 83rd percentile means that 83% of all test takers would score at or below a 26. 17% would score better than a 26. So relative cumulative frequency. First, we'll take our frequency bins from the presidential age example. To make cumulative frequency, all we have to do is add up, sort of take a running total. So the 9 comes from 7 plus 2. In other words, 9 presidents were 49 years of age or younger at their inauguration. 22 comes from 13 plus 7 plus 2. And 22 means that 22 presidents were 54 years of age or younger at the time of their inauguration. So we're taking a running total up to 42 total presidents. Then relative cumulative frequency, we'll take and divide those cumulative frequencies by the total number of presidents.
So in order to make an ogive plot of the presidential age data, we're going to take our original bins and now this relative cumulative frequency that we've calculated. And these two data points will create one coordinate point. In other words, an x and a y point. And that point will be the upper edge of this bin. In other words, 45 will be the x-coordinate, and then this relative cumulative frequency, let's say 0.0476. So that will become a grid point on this ogive plot. Now this ogive plot, as you can see, we've got an x and y grid. The x grid, or pardon me, the x-coordinate is age, presidential age, like we've used in the past. Started at 40 and went up by 5s. And then the vertical grid is now that relative cumulative frequency. In other words, the cumulative percent. And right now I've got it split up as 25%, 50%, 75, and 100%. And so that first point we see is 45 and about 4.7%. So I'll go here to 45, and it's not going to go up very much. Maybe to right there. Now the next point, we see the upper edge of this bin would be 50. And the vertical distance, 0.2143. So we're over here at 50, and we're not quite to that 0.25 mark. So let's continue this process. And then typically we sort of connect the dots. We know that no presidents are younger than 40 at inauguration. So we can go down to 0 there. All right. And there we have our president ages ogive plot.
So it looks like I plotted that last point a bit incorrectly. The last point should be at 70 and 100. So, oops. Now the reason why it's at 70 and 100 is because 100% of the presidents were younger than 70 when they were inaugurated. So that point should be, well, it should be adjusted a little bit. Sorry about that. Now let's address a couple of questions. Where is President Obama relative to the other presidents in terms of his age at inauguration? Well, Obama was 47 years old at inauguration, which places him at, let's say, about the 12th percentile. So we would say about 12% of presidents were as young or younger than Obama at their inauguration. What about the center of this distribution? The center of this distribution would be the 50th percentile. And that 50th percentile looks like it's lining up at about 54, let's say. So we would say 54 is the center of the distribution. In other words, 54 is the median age for presidents at their inauguration. What if I asked you for the top 15%? The top 15% is like essentially it's the 85th percentile. And so we would look across at about 85, and we see we're lining up at about 62. So 62 represents the 85th percentile, which means that 15% of presidents were older than 62.